Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of the HeartSpace podcast. We are up to episode 18 right now, and you are with myself, Jasmine, and my wonderful co-host here, Alicia.
Kia ora, guys.
And as you can see, we have a special guest here today, Aunty Heihei. Welcome and thank you for being here today.
Kia ora, thanks for having me.
So we wanted to touch on in this interview the housing and the mental health crisis, which, is very evident, and we don't really need government officials to declare we're in a crisis. There's a lot of evidence around us. There's a lot of talk about it. We can just see it in the inflation that's happening around the country in terms of gas prices and food prices, as well as the prices of rentals properties on the rise. So I know Alicia wanted to lead us in today with a question, so I'm going to hand it over to Alicia.
Thanks, Jess. Awesome. Firstly, Aunty Heihei, I'm so glad that you're here. You and I have been following each other on TikTok for quite some time now. And you've had my back when, I've been so grateful for that, with the trolls and everything like that. And because this is what drew me to you initially, is because you were speaking out about things that were deemed sort of controversial. It was sort of going against the grain, if you know what I mean. And so you're bringing light onto topics that people weren't aware of. And for that, it created a lot of, I know you've had a bit of trolls trolling you as well.
Yep, I've had some backlash.
But my question for you is that because I do, as we've said, you speak about mental health and the housing crisis and all the issues that are currently going on. But I want to know what possessed you to actually take to TikTok in the first place.
It was actually the protests. So I had done one TikTok about my 40th birthday, and that one came about as a result of Jacinda trying the segregation thing with people having passports and what have you. But we still had my 40th birthday, and whānau still came, and there were no passports, and there were no requirements for people to be jabbed. So I put out a TikTok about, we can still live our lives regardless of what the government are doing and saying. And then I didn't touch TikTok until I went to Wellington, because what I was experiencing when I was posting things on Facebook, I was getting a lot of backlash from my family as well. Yeah. There were people that like Jacinda and support Labour. And so I got a lot of backlash. And when we decided to go to Wellington, I was like, right, I'm going to document everything, and I'm going to post up my point of view so everybody can see. And as a result of all my posts, I had family come back and say, actually, I don't agree with what you would, the protest, but I fully support that you went all the way there to make your voice heard. And I'm proud of you for that. So I was like, okay, cool. And ever since then, I've just been making TikToks because I realized that there's people that don't know about how bad the housing situation is, how bad mental health is. And so if I can put those stats out there and not go down the conspiracy theories, because we have a lot of people that talk about what they deem conspiracy theories. We've got so many creators out there doing that. Why not put out some real information that affect real people, and let's get those conversations happening.
Yeah, perfect. And I love that, because that's what I've noticed that you do. So when people come to you and be like, oh, well, blah, 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 you can actually be like, no, here's the evidence. And you actually lead them to these websites or these statistics, which I really admire. Something that I don't actually do in my own videos. I sort of just blurt everything else out, and then I just allow people, you've got to go looking for the information. But that's what I love about you. You actually do take the time, which to me shows that you are truly passionate and care and really want these people to become aware of the current issues that are happening.
Yeah. And for me, because I see myself as a position of privilege, right? Māori wahine sees herself as privileged. That's not something that we hear often enough. I think that people don't realise their own positions of privilege. So for me, I see myself being privileged because I don't receive a benefit. I don't live in a state house. So I'm not scared of what the government could take off me. Like other people who are living in the system just to survive, they're having to, and they're too scared to speak out because they think their benefit's going to be cut or they're going to be kicked out of their house. And so I was like, actually, I've got a big mouth. There's nothing that they can take off me except my tax bill. Let me say something.
That's wonderful that you're the voice for these people in a very vulnerable position right now, because we have a lot of people suffering within New Zealand, and it'll be good if you could just get into some of the information that you know in terms of like what in your opinion is affecting the housing market and the mental health crisis, and would you say they go hand in hand?
Absolutely. I think if we can fix housing, we can fix so many other problems across the board, because if people are living in safe and healthy houses, they're not having to take time off school and time off work. Parents staying in work longer, kids are staying at school, nobody's ending up at the hospital because they've got respiratory problems, So these things do all connect. And I know from experience, because I've worked as a kāinga order agent for my parents, that when people are living in state houses that are unsafe, then mental issues start to take place. Yeah. Depression starts to kick in, stress, anxiety. I've seen it. And so they absolutely do connect, and the government needs to do more. When Labour came in, there were around 107 people identified as living in cars. That number is now 480.
Oh my gosh.
That's how much worse it's gotten. We've got over 25,000 people living in motels.
Yeah.
Over 4,500 of them are children. And the government in the last just over 2 years have spent $788 million on emergency accommodation for around 32 to 34,000 people. That's a lot of money that could have gone into actual houses.
Absolutely.
Permanent housing.
Yeah.
My thing would be, why haven't the government looked at things like tiny homes and working with iwi to get more people back in the rural areas, closer to their marae where they can connect, for Māori who can go back home, put them in tiny homes, get them to pay those off, rather than pay a motel to make money, because there's one motel that's made $15 million
oh my
in the last 2 years.
Wow.
Just hearing those stats, it's just, with the solution that the government has implemented and we've seen roll out, it's merely just a band-aid. And that's what the government, I see with every social issue we have, they're good at putting the band-aid on things to keep people happy for the meantime, but they don't tackle the root cause. So in your opinion, how would we tackle the root cause of the housing issue, as along with what you just said with the tiny homes and allowing people to pay that off? That's an amazing idea. That's something I think would work and give the tenant something to work towards and something to have for their families, because ultimately that's what we want, is that security too at the end of the day.
Yeah, and there are rural areas that are looking for workers. So why aren't we encouraging people taking tiny homes to the rural areas, encouraging those people into the employment that's there?
Yeah, that's
totally. So now the government, that's a great solution, right? And getting people back out into the rural areas, and especially Māori, so that they can connect, But do you see the government actually doing that for the people? That is my question.
No.
And why would you say no?
Because they're not pushing hard enough. Iwi are not pushing hard enough for their own people to do it. So it's not just, it's the iwis that need to say, hang on, you guys are not doing enough for our people. And by you helping us to help our people, you guys are going to be able to help more people. What I've been taught is Te Ao Māori and Te Ao Pākehā need to walk together side by side for it to work for everybody. And that's not what we are seeing. What we're seeing is a government telling us, we know what's right for you. We know what needs to be done. And at the end of it, come and ask us how we gave your dignity back to you.
Yeah. Well said.
And so that 2018 Waitangi Day speech just racks me up the wrong way because of the things that she said, the promises that were made about housing and about mental health, and then come and ask us how we gave you back your dignity. It's like, actually, you haven't solved any of these problems. You do not hold my dignity. I do that. I'm the only holder of my dignity. So, you go solve the problems that you said you were going to solve. And if you can't do that, then step aside so somebody else can.
It really highlights the arrogance of these politicians when they say the things they do. They act like we owe them so much when they're doing so little, really, at the end of the day. And it's very evident with the statistics that are out there. I know that prior to this interview, we were discussing, mental health statistics and how they've somewhat been manipulated or miscrewed or not presented in a way that is honest. So do you want to touch on that?
So our most recent suicide statistics show there were 604 suicides, down on the year before. So the latest ones up until June 2021 are still to come out. But the most recent ones are 604. But what I found out is that coroner's inquests into unexpected deaths has plummeted from over 330 in 2012 to just 24 in 2020. And so what mental health advocates and experts are saying is, because we are not doing these inquests on unexpected deaths, yes, it looks like the suicide statistics are lower, but they're not really, because the mahi still hasn't been done to determine those hundreds of deaths that are there. So when they say it's 604, when you look at it being dropped by over 300, we could be looking at closer to 900 to 1,000 suicides a year by this point.
Wow, that is so sad.
So when I was doing my level 4 NTQA cert in mental health, I think that was the year that Jacinda, she was putting, I think it was 1 million just fund into mental health. And over the last couple of years with the study and training that I've done, I've noticed that the mental health system is absolutely cracked. And I've personally experienced where I had a friend whose son was suicidal, and me only learning all this stuff. So at this point, I was like sort of believing more in the system and that it would actually help. They turned him away, and that's just he's not the only one. This is happening where people are actually falling through the cracks. They give them medication and send them back home, like when they're in that high risk state. And so I'm thinking to myself, where's this money gone? Our mental health system is a joke in my eyes, and it's letting people down.
So in December, we had a waiting list of over 2,000 children who were waiting just for an assessment, not even for help. They were just waiting to see somebody so that they could make the steps to getting help. And then I saw just not long ago, Wellington Youth Mental Health Services were on the verge of collapse because of all the staff leaving. And it's like, so something is not working right here, where children are relying on charities to help them. I look at I Am Hope and Mike King, and that man can do more with $5 million than the government can do with $50 million. And it's just like, I also pull my hair out at the government because I've seen Ashley Bloomfield more than once saying Mike King didn't apply for funding.
No, not
yeah.
But what Ashley didn't tell people at the time was that there was no government funding. I'm not sure if they've changed it now because of everything that Mike's been doing, but there was no funding for children 12 years and for under 12s for mental health.
Oh,
wow.
There were no funding programs available that he could say, hey, I need help with these kids. But 40% of the kids that they work with are under 12. So you've got this charity that works with so many kids, but the government doesn't have the funding available for them to apply for it.
So sad and ridiculous. And, hearing that makes me angry, because with COVID and the mandates dropping, it really has impacted children, especially, with, having time with school and feeling fearful because, a lot of children are impressionable and they actually believe there is a deadly virus, as we've come to know, and that's not the case. And it's been evident with our statistics here. We haven't had many deaths like they said and projected, and people have still managed to contract the virus even though they've had 3 jabby doos.
And they're jabs, they've isolated, and yet it never stopped. Signing in never stopped the spread. Like, I just wanted to touch on that little part. None of this ever stopped the spread. And I do feel for the children because at the same time, children, you need routine. And especially under 12, these are very critical. This is a very critical time in their life, especially in the early life stages, like 5, 6, and even before that. But this psychological warfare tactics that they are doing, they are affecting young children's mental health because they need that routine. I know of my friend that their child was so unhappy because the routine wasn't there. He just wanted to go to school. He just wanted to see his friends, and it's just their whole little world got turned upside down, and then they were just living in fear. They couldn't see their grandparents. Like, just so many things has taken place since 2020, and all this COVID stuff has come about. And to hear that there's no funding for children under the age of 12 is actually heartbreaking. And in a sense, it actually is a worry because these children need that help. But if they can't have that access, then that's going to determine how they are and later on in life, which isn't good. You need to get in there quick to help them overcome all these mental health issues, or help them go with it. So it's not a fix, it's working with them to get through it, and so that they can come out the other side. So I feel quite strongly about that.
And if there's one thing that I want people to know, especially those with kids under 12, is reach out to I Am Hope. There is no waiting for specialists when going through them. You just jump on the website, look for a counsellor in your area and reach out to them. It's as simple as that. There is no doctors to visit. There is no specialists to wait for. It's as simple as jumping on the website and looking for a counsellor.
Do you know who funds I Am Hope? Is that funded by the government, or they do their own funding?
They are mostly charity. They do try and apply for some funding that is available, but it's mostly off the backs of people fundraising for them. So Burger Fuel not long ago just did a promotion where if you buy a burger, they donate so much money to I Am Hope.
Oh, that's great.
They raised $30,000, which was enough for over 200 counselling sessions.
Oh, wow. That's, it's better than nothing at this stage. And kudos to Burger Fuel for getting out there and reaching out.
Yeah.
And it's another way because the system, as you said, going in, just the waiting list alone is so long, and just the process, it's actually, because that process is broken in itself, that this is actually a new avenue potentially that could build a new sort of system for mental health, instead of having to go through and wait on these avenues, because the longer you keep people waiting, the more that they deteriorate.
And Mike's offered to show them their plans. You know, he's offered to work with the ministry about, this is what we do and this is how we do things. And it's just crickets. It's just constant crickets from them.
When you have someone that is devoted to that field of work and who is actively out there, you know, reaching out to families, having the discussions with family and finding out what they need and want, and then have a government not willing to listen to that, that's just not good enough. It really makes my skin boil with these, you know, the intention is there with Mike King, and he has like a system in play. Why not adopt it? You know,
that's the question. That's $1 million question. And that's what I want to ask you is, why do you think that the government are turning a blind eye to this?
Because he makes them look stupid.
Right.
Basically. He makes them look stupid because he's doing more with smaller amounts of money than they can do with $1.9 billion.
Yeah.
So when you look at that funding promise that they made in 2019, and it's come out that it equated to about five more beds.
Yes. Yeah.
That was it. Yeah. $1.9 billion and we got 5 beds. Yeah. Okay, where did the rest of the money go?
Exactly.
And so I think a lot of it is ego, and because he's doing such good work, they don't want to adopt something that's working because they didn't come up with it.
And also they could be, it takes away their ability to kind of funnel money to where they want it to go, because we kind of know that the government doesn't always put the money where they say, you know, it's going. So, yeah, it's interesting. And I think that going forward too with the mental health crisis, there does need to be another plan in place. And so what would you suggest that be in terms of like getting help for adults too who are suffering?
So the good thing about I Am Hope is that they do work with people up to 25.
Oh, that's
so
great.
they do capture the youth too, which is a really big suicide statistic. For our adults, I would like to see I Am Hope expanded the way they operate and open that up to everybody. And not so much under I Am Hope, but a different branch for adults, because it seems to be working and people are getting the help that they need a lot faster.
And it all comes down to funding, I guess, too. They could branch off and reach every age group if they just had that support behind them.
Yeah, and it's going to come down to who's willing to sit down with Mike and actually work with people and work with the counsellors that don't want to work for the DHBs and don't want to work for the Ministry of Health, because that's where a lot of the counsellors come from. They're people that are practicing themselves and don't want to work with the public system because they know how big of a failure it is.
Well, that was actually something that I was worried about, because as we've discussed, like I actually didn't complete my degree. I was in my final year, but because of the mandate, I decided that I stand true to myself and what I believe in. So it was a huge decision to make. But I had always thought about that, like, okay, well, because I'm awake to what's going on here, I was like, okay, so when I do graduate, where am I going to go from that point? Because I don't want to work. I don't want to be a counsellor working in under the DHBs in that system, because there's so much and people aren't being treated right. And for me, that would hit me pretty hard, and I would probably go against all my code of ethics to try and go out of my way to really help these people, which would have been deemed unethical in the eyes of, you know, DHB and all that under the code of ethics. So then I was like, well, what am I going to do? I'm going to go through and I'm going to have to start my own thing. Yeah, and I think to hear that a lot more counsellors are actually stepping away from that, and actually because they can see the system for what it is, that actually gives me hope to know that it does. It touches my heart, because I'm like, good, because these people need these counsellors, especially the time that, with everything that's going on at the moment, it's crucial.
100%.
Yeah, it's definitely going to come down to the government actually doing what they say and working with people, because the people on the ground know a lot more than the people that are pushing the pens and telling them what they want to hear.
So how do you think we should go about holding the government accountable?
Parliamentary petitions are always a good thing. I'm very much of the belief that you use the system against the system. So in terms of housing, what some people don't know is there's what we call the Tenancy Compliance and Investigations team. And so tenants can ring up and make a complaint about the landlord. If they get enough complaints, they can investigate the landlord. So for those in state housing, I would suggest you contact TCIT if you have issues with your state house, and bomb them with your complaints about kāinga ora as a landlord, because the more complaints they get about them, the more chance they're going to look into them as a landlord. The other thing is state housing tenants don't realise that their rights as a tenant are exactly the same as someone living in a private rental. So they can take kāinga ora to the tenancy tribunal. They can issue 14-day notices and say, actually, I need you to get this work done within 14 days, or we're going to tribunal, and they can make you do the work and possibly make you pay me out.
Wow.
That is some valuable information. People really need to hear this, because a lot of people don't know their rights and what they're able to do in terms of getting things done. So I'm so pleased that you're touching on all this. It makes me beam.
You can go to the Health and Disability Commissioner and make a complaint there if your healthcare, you've got problems with healthcare. Go to Human Rights. I send everything to Human Rights. If I come across an issue, I go back to them for advice every single time, whether it's about health, housing, the mandates, you name it, I send everything to them. And they've got back to me every time.
That was going to be my next question, Liz. How are they responding? Are they actively, getting back to you and making a difference through complaining?
Yep. So they are getting back to me about different things. Kāinga ora, I've been in a bunch of meetings with them, and the issues that I needed them to sort have been sorted.
Wow.
But they've still got a long way to go within the organisation. I'm hopeful. The people that I've been in touch with lately have been really good. I'm just hoping that filters through the rest of the system, and that they do make some changes, because I've pointed out that there are changes that I think should happen.
That's good.
The privacy, this is a really good one that people don't tend to know about too. Official Information Act requests and Privacy Act requests. So you can go to any organisation that you've had dealings with and ask them for all the information that they have on file about you. And you would be surprised at what some organisations have on file about you. The thing I could tell you that they have about me,
wow,
it's just like, whoa. Well, okay.
Would you say it's personal information, and is it shocking because they've able to gain this information without your knowledge? Why is it shocking?
It's shocking because some of it was incorrect information, and there were some very judgmental notes. There were notes about me personally, and I was like, whoa.
Yeah, because someone very close to me has been in battle with actually the Health and Disability Commissioner for the way that she was treated in hospital by the staff. And it took quite some time. Like it was just a back and forth for so long. And I don't know what they've got in the notes of how they were treating her. Like, and it's quite concerning that they are able to put their opinion and judgmental notes in there. And not only that, what I
Not
have
professional either. Yeah.
Very unprofessional. But what I've noticed, so the person that I am very close with, is with the Health and Disability Commissioner and the investigation, it went nowhere. They actually landed up still backing up the medical staff, and even though I was witness to it all as well, it's not good enough. They just wanted to shut it down. So in my experience watching how the Health and Disability Commissioner work, I've lost faith in that. So is there a particular way that you deal with them to get the response that you want, to get the outcome that you want? Or is it based on who you get on the other end that's dealing with your case?
I've learned how to be really ruthless when it comes to dealing with government organisations, that I turn around and say to them, we need to get some resolutions happening. I'm quite happy to take it back to the media. I'm quite happy to go to Parliament. I'm quite happy to go wherever I need to go to escalate this to make sure my voice is heard.
Yeah. And
that tends to get me a better reaction than if I just say, please, can you help me with this?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
so,
yeah.
Well, it would be great. Oh, sorry, you go, sis.
Sorry. No, I was just thinking, so you'd be quite a good advocate for people.
That's what I was thinking.
Is that what you were just going to say?
Yeah. Because not everyone is able to have these conversations and be as ruthless. So it'd be cool to have some type of advocate or people that are prepared to have these conversations on their behalf too.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, I've got a family member in hospital at the moment, and she's had some issues in hospital. And I've said to her, all you need to do is give me permission to lay a complaint, and then you can just sit back and relax, and I will take care of everything else. Yeah. So I'm waiting to get answer back. But yeah, I'm fully prepared to go in there and start swinging bats and be like, okay, this is not right, and this is where you've messed up, and how do we fix this?
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Beautiful.
Need more people like you.
Yeah, you need a lot of mongrel in you, I've found. And and it's because I am mixed that I've found that I'm not Māori enough for the Māori world, and I'm not Pākehā enough for the Pākehā world. So I've spent most of my life trying to walk between the two worlds, that now I'm quite comfortable doing that, where I'm unapologetically Māori, and I am unapologetically able to walk into the systems and go, actually, no, I don't like that. This is, I
totally resonate with what you just said there, because I am Cook Island, and I feel the same. Like I was raised like my parents, looking at them, predominantly brown features, but we were raised in, I guess, the Pākehā way, I guess, and I didn't grow up like a lot of typical migrant families did when they came over. So yeah, I can totally resonate with what you just said there, and how you kind of just got to find this beautiful way to intertwine both worlds and stand in your power.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. And that's what it is for me. And it took me a long time to get to that point to go, actually, you know what? I am Māori enough.
Yeah.
You may think that I'm white because of how I was brought up and how I've lived, but I am actually Māori, and the way my parents brought me up. My father passed 7 weeks ago.
Oh, sorry to hear this.
Wow.
No worries. He it was overdue. They gave Dad a month, and he's the reason, actually. He's the very reason why I didn't get jabbed, because they gave him a month and he lasted nearly 3 years.
Yeah. You did a TikTok on this, didn't you?
Yeah.
I remember watching this. Yes.
He decided that he wasn't going to take the medications anymore when they said that to him. And then he lived for nearly 3 years. And I'm like, see, if you hadn't taken those from the start, would you still be here with us today? And so he was a big part of me deciding to not get jabbed. And then when he did pass, what we saw was the 43 years of him and my mother being together, all the love that they put out into the world came back to us. And I have never been to a more beautiful tangi than my father's one. We sat outside the first night when we came home, and we let him stay inside the house with his brothers and sisters. And my sisters and I were sitting outside laughing at 1 o'clock in the morning, cracking up laughing. And I said to them, if people walked in here now, they would look at us as if we're crazy because our father's lying in a coffin while we're sitting out here laughing. But that's the kind of man Dad was. He loved laughter and music and things. So he absolutely ran at the right time, and in the right way. He said to us, I just want to go to sleep. And that's what he did. So everything was done his way. So while, yes, there is sadness that he's not here, more than anything, I'm grateful for what we were given in that time that he was with us. Yeah.
Beautifully said, sis.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
No, you're welcome.
It's going to touch quite a few people, I think.
Yeah, he was a special person.
Yeah,
he was a special person, and we had some names come through, some people that came through. My siblings, so I didn't grow up te ao Māori. My parents were that generation of people who weren't allowed to. Yeah. And so I was that much older than my siblings, but when they came along, kohanga was a thing. So they got to go to kohanga and they got to go to kura. So the whole kura turned up, even though my siblings haven't been at school for 10 years and all these kids have all grown up and they're all adults now. So many of them came, and then we saw so many of the teachers and, you know, just everyone that we knew from their school days all just come through and say, this is the most loving tangi we've ever been to.
Oh,
okay, cool. Awesome.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it was.
And you can tell by just your energy that I can pick up on who you are. And I've always felt that you're just a person that just wants to help others. You've got a beautiful heart. You've just got a beautiful aura like about you, your energy, and and I think the world could do with a lot more people that love.
Yeah.
And
and that's what my parents put out into the world. The number of people that came in and said, you know, if it wasn't for you, and we loved him like Dad, and it's just like, wow, okay, our father touched all these people, and that's why they're all here. Yeah,
that's so beautiful.
You know, we had 22 cars come with us that took us back up north to take Dad home.
Wow.
And 15 cars came home with us. They stayed with us that whole time that we took him home, and they delivered us back to Mum's house afterwards. And I'm like, that right there is love. That is something that no amount of money in the world will buy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No. I'm just touched by that. I'm just sitting in there.
In the moment right now.
Yeah.
And I'm just so glad that you know, people came through and showed that support. It just, you know, how could you not celebrate, you know, the end of it?
Yeah. And that's what it was for us. It was all being together and celebrating the person that he was. And we had some people come in masks, and we had some that weren't. I had an uncle that came from Aussie, and he's like, niece somewhere in my mask. And I was like, Uncle, you always told me that when Dad died you weren't going to be here, but you're here. So I don't care what you've got on your face right now. You have to do what's best for you, because you're the one that has to get on a plane and go home, not me. So, you know, it's just like I think
that's what it comes down to at the end of the day, is that freedom of choice. You know, we don't care that necessarily if you're wearing a mask or not. It's just the expectation of people expecting us to wear one.
Yeah.
It's that mutual respect.
Yeah, but he thought we would rib him, and I was like, Uncle, I don't care. You're here. That means more than anything. You can have 100 masks on your face. I really don't give a crap.
And I think that's what people, I think that's where it needs to come back, because there's so much disconnection in society at the moment. I feel like so many people are broken, so many people disconnected. They've lost family members that are still alive, but because of a difference in opinion, like this division has created between friends, family, and just society alone. But you've got to take a step back and look at what's really truly important, like having that empathy and compassion for one another. Doesn't matter where I used to be really like, oh, not wearing a mask and blah blah. I used to be like that at the beginning, and I've kind of just tried to humble myself and come from a place of love, because I'm all about freedom of choice, right? So I have no right to be going off at other people for choosing to wear a mask and doing all that kind of stuff. So there's that humility that's come about, and I think that's where we need to come back to, is that connection, because everyone is so disconnected at the moment. So that tangi was connection, and it brought everyone together. Doesn't matter where you're wearing a mask or not, like, you're here, and that was the main part.
And that's what it's always been about within my own whānau. I have some of my siblings that are jabbed, and my in-laws are jabbed. Did they want to be? No, but they felt forced to, because if they didn't, how were they going to provide for their kids? And that was one of the big ones with one of my brothers-in-law. He said, Mum, I've worked too hard on my career to throw it down the drain.
A lot of people were backed into a corner with the mandates too. So there's that compassion too of, people have a livelihood to obtain.
Yeah, and it's sad. It's sad that these people have been made to feel that way. They say, oh, well, you could have chosen. Well, there's not really a choice in that. That's scary. Like having your livelihood. Well, there's a possibility I lose everything. I won't be able to feed my kids, keep shelter, like roof over my head. And what a horrible position to be in. So my heart does go out to those people. Yeah,
and that's where I've had to humble myself too, is hearing the stories from my in-laws and them saying, I didn't actually want to be jabbed, but this is how I felt. And so I've had to take the step back and go, okay, it's not just about me not wanting to get it. Okay, you have to respect their choice and why they took the route that they did.
And it's a typical tactic that the government does, where they've got us all pointing our fingers at each other, where we should be pointing it right back at them, because they're the ones who implemented the mandate in the first place, which I heavily believe wasn't necessary at all.
Yeah.
So it always goes back to the government and the corrupt system,
It's like, so I woke up more so in 2020, but before that I was starting to see things. But I know there was a bunch of people like myself that were trying to warn people that they're going to bring out this jibby jab, and they're going to threaten you with your livelihood and strip away basically your freedom or your leisure and all that kind of stuff if you don't comply. And oh my gosh, like I used to spend so much time in the media, posts on Facebook and trying to tell people, and I just got laughed at. And when it happened, I was just like, we've tried to warn you. I wish you listened, but you know what? That's their journey that they had to take. And it's sad, but it's their journey, unfortunately. And I think a lot of people have woken up now.
You watch all the ratings start to fall now. It's like, okay, that's cool, but what next? For me, it's the what next, because she's bad, but who will come in next and be worse than she is? Do I trust Robertson if she was to step down now? Absolutely not. I don't trust him as far as I can push him, which isn't very far. But, do I trust Luxon? No. National and Labour are wings of the same bird. Act are the arse feathers of that bird. I don't, and the Greens. the Greens or the Aspedas. I don't trust any of them.
I don't trust any of the political parties one bit. And it's something that I enrolled to vote for the very first time in my life in 2020 because I had hope in the smaller parties that were a part of our, say, truther community that were wanting to. But yeah, I ended up doing a vote of no confidence because, like, by that point of actually coming to vote, I lost all faith. Then I learned that even voting in no confidence, they take your vote and put it to. They actually take that as a vote and put it over to, I think, Labor or whoever's already in charge. I actually can't. I don't know if that's 100% correct, but I know that it's voting no confidence. It's still some form of a vote. So I'm not doing anything now. None of it. I don't.
It wouldn't surprise me if they were doing that at all, with how corrupt we know they are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
you've actually created a petition, or was it yourself that created it?
I did. So I have a petition at the moment to ask Jacinda Ardern to step down as the Minister for Child Poverty Reduction. And that came about because she created that role for herself in 2018. That was a position that wasn't there until she became Prime Minister.
You mentioned that because that's the first I've heard of that too. So that's good to know.
Yeah. So she created that role for herself. And then just in the last few months, I've been watching what's been going on. I'm like, actually, you're saying that the kids have been lifted out of poverty by the 9 measures that you use, but they actually haven't told us what those 9 measures are. And when you look at the homelessness rates and you look at mental health and you look at the failing education statistics and how many more people are relying on schools to feed their kids, I'm sitting here going, so what kids have been lifted out of poverty?
Yeah.
There has been no poverty reduction. So
if not, there's been more.
The blinkers are on, or you need to step down as that minister because you created that role and you suck at it.
And they can never be transparent with the information or the real statistics behind these things. And that's another reason I've lost complete faith in the system. They've got nothing to back them up. And if they do, it's usually fabricated of some sort. Would you say that's the case?
It's I'm not sure if it's fabricated or it's the way they misreport it. So they misrepresent how they put information out. So when you go back a little while ago and they were talking about the lowest unemployment rates, and they said it was 3.2, it was actually closer to 6%, because what they don't tell people is that those on a job seekers benefit aren't counted as unemployed.
See, they've always got these tricky little loopholes, when delivering the information.
Yeah.
I spoke to Wins quite a few months ago. I had to jump on after with my course because obviously I couldn't get student allowance. So I had to sort out something pretty quick. And she said to me that it's just crazy. Everyone is applying for some sort of government help with the benefit. And she said, so the processing time for applications is taking longer. So I heard it from her who works there and is in the call center. She deals with all of that. And she said it's at an all-time high. They've never seen anything like it.
Yeah.
And I can't help but feel, because of being aware of the overall agenda at play here, I can't help but feel this is all done strategically by design, including Jacinda not adhering to her promise. I feel like that was just a way to get in and get people in believing that she was just this person that wanted to help. That I feel like that, and this is just in my opinion, I just feel that she's done this by design because they're trying to collapse everything. They're trying to break people. They're trying to break the, you've got second class, they're trying to collapse it so there's literally rich and poor, and we're all going to be, the middle class are going to be, they've already been pushed down, into the poverty line.
And the middle class is the backbone of society, so it's strategical for them to take us out first. And a lot of the middle class are feeling the pinch with the mandates and everything that the government is implementing at this point in time. And I completely agree with you, Alicia, in terms of this is all done by design to get us more dependent on the government. And it even states that they always do it in a nice way within the UN document for Agenda 30. And they say it's for sustainable living. They always class it as something, as a guise of hope and, help for us. And it never is the case. It really isn't.
Their slogan is, you'll own nothing, you will own nothing and be happy.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's no comparison. It's fact.
And with the cost of living and the housing crisis, we are on a fast track to owning nothing. Businesses are closing hand over fist, and people are like, you got free money and you got handouts. That wasn't enough money for some businesses to keep operating.
Yeah.
The wage subsidy didn't even cover mine and my husband taking wages, so it's like we've had a decrease in the money that we got over those lockdowns, but at the same time our rent has gone up $70 in the last 2 years since healthy home standards have been introduced, but our house is worse than it was before. So we live in an older 1960s style house with the old eaves that go out a mile from the house. So our bathroom window has always stayed open since we've moved in. Once they put the fan in, we started experiencing mold in the bathroom and in the toilet next door.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's like, healthy homes, what?
Doesn't make sense.
Our landlord had to put one of those ceiling fans in above our stove because they physically could not put a range hood on the wall above the stove because our power meter is just outside. So they had to put a ceiling fan in it. But our stove is next to a back door and underneath the window. So we're paying extra money for things that we didn't.
Aren't necessary, yeah.
But the government didn't allow rules for exemptions. So when we had the inspector come in and have a look at the house, I said to him, is there anything that our landlord can do? Because you can't put a range hood there. And he goes, no, there isn't. The government haven't allowed for exemptions like that. And I'm like, well, that's just ridiculous. Because one set of rules for all these different kinds of houses.
They've got a way of helping without helping at all, really.
I feel like they're just stripping everyone like it's like they're helping, but at what extra cost? And then and as we are seeing currently, like, well, gas price, food is a huge one. Like, I've noticed that things have gone up at least $1.50. It's about $2, like, it's roughly, if you're going to get little things, like $2 would be your minimum for each item, and $2 to $3. And I'm noticing, like, the cat food is insane. It's gone up. Fruit and veggies, it's gone up.
And we know what is in cat food. We know that's all the rubbish end of processed meat and whatnot, and we're paying, extra cost for it. Crazy.
Yeah. I've had to change my cat's food to a cheaper one, and I'm like, please don't be fussy because
you're going to starve.
Yeah, and
to add up, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a concern because it's like they're trying to help us, but everything's rising. But the employment rate, like, it's not. People are struggling. It's like people literally, and this is how I see it. People spend most of their waking life at work. If you're working from a Monday to Friday 9 to 5 type of job, and you've got to get up early, especially if you're living in the cities. Like, see, where I'm in Auckland, it's not easy just to go from A to B because you've more cars on the road. We're fighting the traffic, so you've got to get up earlier. You're spending your time at a job, and then when you get your pay and then you see how much you tax and you see how much pricing has gone up, you're not any better off.
And the amount of time that you're sitting in the traffic, like, time is money.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, absolutely.
I just wanted to head back to the petition that you've put together, and just mention before I forget that I will be putting a link down below in the description if anyone wants to sign that. Is that right? Do they just provide a email and signature or name?
Yeah. So it is a parliamentary petition, so it does go back to Parliament, which is the good thing about parliamentary ones versus change.org. It will go back to Parliament. So they just have to click on the link, fill in details, and then, it comes up as people being signed. I think if we can get people actually signing it, it gives them a visual statement of, we've got all these people that are unhappy with how badly we're failing the kids out there. I just had a talk yesterday with some people about how much I dislike the lunches in schools program. I appreciate that there are kids that need to be fed, but I think it's just another one of those things that the government are dangling as, we're helping you. When they could have done other things to keep more money in people's pockets so they could buy lunch for their own kids.
Absolutely.
And it's just that control aspect. I just see the government, just in my own opinion, as these control freaks that are, trying to gain more control over our lives, and now they're coming for our children, and the way we are able to support them. So, just having this conversation today has been great. I know that Alicia wants to talk about having you back on at another stage. You want to touch on that?
Yeah, so off camera, so this is a topic that I'm quite passionate about. But off camera, you've mentioned that Indigenous TikTok is blowing up. I was wondering if you wanted just to explain just a little bit about that, because as I said, me being passionate about this topic myself, I would love for you to come back on so that we could actually discuss these controversial topics and sensitive topics in a safe space like we are now.
Yeah, so at the moment, Indigenous TikTok is going absolutely crazy. What we're finding is that there is one Indigenous creator, not a Māori, thankfully, who has managed to annoy the heck out of just about every Indigenous culture that is on TikTok, with some of his white presenting or white passing comments that he's made. And it's brought about, his ugliness has actually brought about a lot of positive conversations among other creators in Māoris and with Aboriginals and Indians, with all the Indigenous cultures. We're all starting to have these real honest conversations about how some of the colonized have become the colonizers, and how they have become gatekeepers of our culture in ways that the old Pākehās and colonizers used to gatekeep our culture. Now we've got some of our own people who are doing that. And so there's been a lot of conversations on how do we get around that, and validating everybody, no matter what colour they are. If they are Māori, they are Māori. Doesn't matter if it's 1 drop of blood or 5 litres of blood, you are Māori. And so it's brought about lots of really cool conversations, lots of learning, where we are having other people jumping into lives with Māori content creators and sharing their culture, and we're able to jump in lives with others and share ours, and everyone sharing language. And we're finding that our common thing amongst everyone, whether you are Indigenous or not, is at the end of the day, we're all human.
I love that.
I love that too.
We all connect.
Yeah.
And we've all got something to say. And we provide that safe space, Tomarangi and I especially, even for our Pākehā to come in. We've had Pākehā come into our lives and be like, can I be here because I'm Pākehā? Yep. Have you seen us? We're not just Māori. Yes, we're unapologetically Māori, but we are not just Māori.
Oh, that's beautiful.
I love that.
I love
and
that.
what a great way to finish this conversation. I love that you touched on that, because this is a humanity issue that we're dealing with. And I think we need to put all those what separates us, like, because it's just an illusion at the end of the day, this illusion of separation that has been ingrained in us through the programming and the indoctrination. And we're so similar. At the end of the day, we just want, you know, proper housing. We want our children to be safe and their futures to have some type of security. And you know, when we come to that conclusion, we realize how similar we all are at the end of the day. So thank you so much for your time today, and I'm really it's been a pleasure, and we're really looking forward to having you back and speaking on what you just touched on there, because we want to go so much deeper with that, because we know it's you know, it's very important to have these conversations and just keep that open dialogue out there into the collective psyche, and you know, it combats the corrupt narrative and the bullshit that the mainstream media is putting out there.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you so much for your time today. It's been such a great episode with you, and I can't wait to have you back on.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me, guys. It's been awesome. I've loved sharing, because there's a lot to share.
It is. Sharing is caring here. And thank you to everyone who, you know, tuned in today and, you know, and watched this to the end. We appreciate your support. And, you know, if our content resonates with you, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the like button down below, or even share this interview with people you know would love this type of content. That really helps our channel grow, and we appreciate the support. So thank you, guys, and ka kite.
Ka kite.
Bye, guys.